certified and teaching people, and then going to India and learning the roots behind it.
Yeah, we were going to these places. So I was like, why not just also visit this and see, what's up? A different tool than just a steel one. And I'd only swung steel ones up until that point. So
purchased a bike in India, and that was a mistake. Can you tell us about purchasing?
Yeah. So I really wanted a Royal Enfield, right?
Yeah.
And later out, we found out that we spent, I think it was 35,000 rupees more, and then we broke down again. And in total, we had 4 new pistons. Piston is like the main part of the engine that goes up and down.
Talking about the differences, so how was it different from doing a certification in US and learning the old traditions of GADA movement in India?
Yeah. I think in the West, we try always to have some type of structure around things, and we break things down.
Yeah.
And in India, I found that there's not much connection between all the persons that teach. Yeah, just visiting a few Akharas there and gyms, like you get a good understanding of it, but it's not as like it's a different way of coaching than you've just experienced coaching from me. It's not as thought through mentally.
Thanks for doing this. We are staying Indian, and we bring stories which are inspired by India, which are connected to India in some sort or some ways. And your story is one of those. So what I want to know is why Flowing Dutchman? What's the story behind Flowing Dutchman?
Yeah, there was one. I think there was one guy mentioning me once. Said the Flowing Dutchman. Because the Flying Dutchman is it's like this famous pirate ship, right?
Yeah.
And Flowing Dutchman because I flow with the mace. So like when you flow and you connect movements together, you kind of flow from one to the next, like whoever flows through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm flowing with a mace, and I'm from Holland, Netherlands. So the Flying Dutchman became the Flowing Dutchman. So
nice. So you touched upon how this became a passion of yours. You started like 8 years ago, and a lot of people on the internet do not see the kind of hard work that has gone into how it all started. Can briefly touch upon that.
And so what happened is that I became very passionate about mental and physical health. So I had a breakup, and the breakup really tore me down, and I had to kind of refigure myself out, right? I wasn't really sure who I was and where I was heading towards, because I did, the university stuff, and I was about to graduate, and like everything kind of culminated into something that I should get a job in some kind of firm.
Yeah.
And then it just all crumbled down, and I started to build my identity up again, started to become really involved with personal development, work on myself, become more aware, do meditation, training, all these stuff. Became really obsessed with my physical and mental health in that sense. And that eventually got me to start my own company training people. So I had this bicycle card that I used, and with the bicycle card I had a limited amount of weight that I can put in there. So I started to search for things that were, functional but heavy, but not like heavy. So it develops your strength, but the weight doesn't need to be that heavy. So that's when I eventually got up to the club bell and then the Macebell. And that's when I first started to teach people straight away with swinging things. The Macebell was kind of an inspiration from the GADA that you find in India.
Yeah.
So it was kind of already kind of a Western thing that was happening. It's in an online space. So I got really motivated and inspired by people who were posting about this online. There was one guy in England, a few guys in the United States. And that's kind of how I got my inspiration in the beginning. And then I started to create for myself. And that's kind of where this really started.
Kind of spiraled up. You also mentioned that you went to US to do the certification, and how that happened.
Yeah, well, the main teachers that I saw, and when I visited YouTube and saw this about the mace, they were all in the US. So that's where the first steel mace was actually made of steel.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were people teaching this, doing certifications, and actually creating coaches. And the thing that started around 9 to 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got into it, those people were my inspiration. So I wanted to visit them and meet them and learn from them, because I'd never been in one-on-one and never been taught myself. Like I was
Yeah.
teaching people, but I wasn't, no one actually looked in person to me because there was nobody around that could actually do that.
Yeah. Very popular in the US.
It's getting more popular.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you go into the rabbit hole of the internet, it seems to be popular because you follow and see all the same kind of people.
Yeah.
It has become a lot bigger now, but it used to be the biggest in America, but that's relatively biggest because it's still kind of a niche thing, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you compare it to any other tool to work out with.
And how did that transition you from, getting certified and teaching people and then going to India and learning the roots behind it?
Yeah, it was a kind of a coincidence that I was already planning to go to India. I wasn't really I wasn't doing that specifically for that, but I had seen a video on YouTube of somebody who, like a Western, Paul Kowinski, he's from Australia, and he had visited from this, he started 10 years ago, I think 12, with this art and became very masterful at it. And he wanted to visit all the places where the origin lies. So he had made a few documentaries about it, and that kind of made me interested, like, hey, this is actually from India. So when I traveled there with my ex-girlfriend at the time, we were going to these places. So I was like, why not just also visit this and see, what's up? And that's kind of when I first got exposed to the Akharas and try a few of the gadas there. I was able to swing them already because the mace is kind of similar in a way. But some of the techniques were really different and interesting to figure out because the gada is actually, it's usually a stone with a bamboo handle, which makes it a very different tool than just a steel one. And I'd only swung steel ones up until that point. So
we'll get to that difference, but you were mentioning that you purchased a bike in India, and that was a mistake. Can you tell us about what really happened?
So I really wanted a Royal Enfield, right?
Yeah.
A Royal Enfield. I really wanted one. So we went to Varanasi, the first city when we came from Nepal to Varanasi after a month in the Himalayas. And it was a mistake in the sense that we asked a tuk-tuk driver to bring us to a mechanic. We didn't know that the tuk-tuk driver was actually, he said, I have a friend who's a mechanic. And for us, if we call somebody friend in the Netherlands, he's actually a friend.
Exactly.
In India, it's more like a pie. And if it's a pie, then it's like everybody's a pie. Everybody's your brother, right? So he said, we thought he was a good friend of him, but later on we knew that he was just telling him, hey, I've got a few foreigners who want to buy a bike. Can we make a deal? Yeah. So that's kind of how that happened. So they kind of made a deal that they would get us to purchase a bike from him so that they both would benefit from that. And later out, we found out that we spent, I think it was 35,000 rupees more than the actual owner of the bike got from the mechanic.
Oh, really?
So
that's some commission.
That's a big commission. Yeah, we didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
We just came in India, we had no idea what the value was. And they said, it's an old bike. The old bikes are very valuable. A lot of people ride the old bikes. It's a left gear. Yeah, so you shift with your left foot. And then the first drive we did, the long drive, we already broke down. And then we broke down again. And in total, we had 4 new pistons. Piston is like the main part of the engine that goes up and down. So we had to, in 2 months, we had to revisit the mechanics and stay there for a long time to just get the piston done. And then we had to drive only 50 maximum because if we're a new piston, and eventually I found out years afterwards that bike engine was actually from a different model on one side.
And so
the crank, one of them had a different circle. So the crank was attached to 2 different parts. So the moment you speed up above 50, then it starts to move sideways and then it breaks again. So every time after we've driven 1,000 kilometers with a new piston, we started to ramp it up and then it would break again. So it was,
we still have that one?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that happen with the bike, but I'm not using it anymore to travel because it just takes too much time. Yeah. Its maximum speed is 65.
I would assume the amount of money you spent in that bike, you would have bought a new one.
Yeah. Well, luckily the expenses are if you connect it in rupees, it's not that, in euros, it's not that much.
Yeah.
But if that would be the case here, it would be extremely expensive.
Talking about the differences, so how was it different from doing a certification in US and learning the old traditions of Gada movement in India?
Very different. I think in the West, we try always to have some type of structure around things, and we break things down.
Yeah.
And in India, I found that there's not much connection between all the persons that teach.
Yeah.
So it's all a lineage from the guru from that place.
Yeah.
So the student gets to learn from their guru, who learn from their guru. So what we do is we learn from everybody, right? We learn from people from the US, from like through the internet. So we get good information quickly.
Yeah.
What happens there is that it's kind of everybody has a similar, different way of actually doing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's kind of out of not really in place.
Yeah.
And they have kind of different techniques. So yeah, just visiting a few Akharas there and gyms, like you get a good understanding of it. But it's not as like it's a different way of coaching than you've just experienced coaching from me. It's not not as thought through mentally. It's
not
more
structured.
No.
It's something that their generations used to do, and they have carried it out.
Yeah, they're not coaches.
Yeah.
I would say, in my mind, they're gurus, but they're not really. They give you a heavy weight relatively, and then say, yeah, swing it around and do this more and pull it more there. So they are coaching, but it's a different mindset, in a different way of coaching.
And I think the goal differs as well. You know, the goal of your coaching would be mobility, would be strengthening, right? And their goals would be different. I think that's also the main.
Yeah, for in Varanasi, and that's like that was the mace was inspired from the gada that you find in Varanasi, because there's many types of gadas.
There.
There's this they call wooden club a gada. They call it in Kalai Paita, you fight with a gada. They call that a gada. So prize of wrestlers, it's also a gada.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always a bit different. If you say, yeah, that's a gada, it's like, yeah, which one? So the Varanasi one is the very big one, the large one, like 120 centimeters. It has a bamboo handle. For that, the technique is quite specific. So they go up in weight.
Yeah.
So there, the goal is more of like you have to do a certain weight, not necessarily have all these different techniques. Use it for that. Use mobility before you start warming up. Like all these things are not really connected with it, and that's maybe something I would say like it's not advanced enough. It's not learned from. It's like it's only proven by your own guru. It's not that there are many people that kind of gather in that same process of learning.
Yeah.
Because it's not connected to the other states. It's not connected. They don't have the connection there. So understanding that makes like it makes sense, but it's also interesting because it's such a long lineage that so it's like that is also the beauty of it, right? It's really good to experience that, to see that how the gurus like kind of take you through it.
How was India for you? What was kind of expected? What was kind of unexpected?
I just like the fact that it's so different in culture. Yeah. So I just like that it's so radically different. So I remember being at a hostel. It wasn't like it was a homestay, and this guy every morning at 10 he went to the Shiva temple. So I asked him like, why do you go to the Shiva temple? And he just didn't understand the question. He just said, yeah, I just one day I just went to the Shiva temple, and from that point I did it every day. So that like we would have a reasoning. We would say, yeah, I'm doing this because it helps me. Like I'm praying to a Lord because it actually helps me calm my nervous system down. Like we always have this reason why we do things, and there it's more connected to what they actually, I don't know, what they feel, like what their intuition is saying. Yeah. So that's something that I was like, wow, this is actually a different way of looking at the world. So I'm really interested in that, that part.
And I think you touched that on workshop as well. It's more about feeling and thinking coincide, right? It's that synergy, that space that you need to be.
Yeah, because we're so used to being up in our head. And it's not, it's a connection. It's a deeper connection that you have with yourself.
Yeah.
And you can learn that through these movements. That's what I'm starting to figure out. And I think that is the reason why they're doing this. Like it's a deeper essence, a deeper goal, not necessarily because you want to have, bigger, stronger arm.
Yeah.
There's something to the fact that it's swinging and momentum.
And I think also, the Akharas that you mentioned, they train for Elwani or Kushti, right? They have...
In Varanasi, they're not wrestlers anymore.
Okay.
They really made it specifically about these gadas.
And have you been to Haryana as well? So there is a lot of training for wrestlers, and do they use gadas?
No. Especially Haryana, they've gone completely Western style wrestling.
Okay.
So they're using machines, they're using mat wrestling. You don't find Kushti much. If you go more to Karnataka and Maharashtra, it's still quite here and there. But yeah, no, you don't find the wooden clubs as much anymore, and you definitely don't find good technical swingers in Akharas. Sometimes they use it, but it's like then it's the only guy that knows how to do it.
Yeah. And what do you prefer? Do you prefer the gym kind of style of training, or the natural wooden clubs and sticks?
No, I love clubs and maces, but I also think there's a big value in traditional or in traditional gyms, but in modern gyms. Mm-hmm. If you do it correctly, like every tool, you can do it wrong or you can do it bad, good. Even with a mace or a wooden club, you can do something that's not good for you.
Yeah.
Right. So with a pulley, or if you do a rope pull or whatever, a ring row, you can actually learn how to contract every part of your body, right? And really pull into it. If you learn it through that, then it's actually very beneficial. If you just start to do this, that, it doesn't work, right? So there's always intention is always the most important thing.
And I think it looks really easy when someone is doing it really good, the mace blow. But when you try it yourself, it's not that easy. You need to get used to the off balance of the mace and how it swings around your body, right? So
it's very difficult. Yeah. But I make it look easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. But
I know. I tried it for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like you try to make it an extension of the body, right? You're trying to be one with the tool.
Yeah.
And then you become the tool. And that's the essence, I think. That's the essence, because that's what we're doing in life. We're creating circles and we're becoming that circle. We're integrating ourselves with the world that we are. Just like we're integrating our bodies with the air around us.
Yeah.
We're connected in that sense. So if you can use a tool and then be with that tool and move around it, move with it, and like play with it in that sense, that's what we're continuously doing when we're walking. We're doing the same thing. We're also shifting our weight, we're moving.
And we do think while doing it. So, we have to get in that state while, the body is moving, but we don't think about how we are swinging the mace.
Yeah. So you bring it into your unconscious and you lose.
I think it's memory, muscle.
Yeah, it's coordinative. You know where the mace is in space. There's definitely some activation. It's not thinking like, okay, what should I do now? And it's more direct. You kind of understand the movement, and then I feel it's like playing chess, because you always have to think 2 steps ahead. So when you swing this way, you know that it's going to come back on that way. So when you're turning around it, you have to know where you will be after you turn around. So I'm already there. So you become like an intelligent mover in that sense.
And did you try a lot of Indian food as well?
Yeah,
that's what's it?
Yeah. Well, the first 2 years I got big Delhi belly.
Yeah.
So I learned not to eat that much street food anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm always, when I go to another city or another country, I try what the locals try. But I found out pretty quickly that I shouldn't do that, because you just don't want to. Because I've been to a lot of these traditional old villages where they never really have tourists, because I drive on this motorcycle, which is not fast. So you end up having to stay like in very small villages and towns, and when you have to get a breakfast, lunch, or a lunch or breakfast, you will usually get it from the street.
Yeah.
And those places, I just don't like. They eat fried food always there.
Yes.
In the morning.
Everything is fried.
And you cannot get eggs anywhere.
Yeah.
And I really like eggs. So it's like they only get that in night.
Yeah.
So that was definitely difficult for me to adjust to it at first. Now I understand what I like, and I'm just in search for that. So I know how to search on Google, like what kind of
food. So you're maneuvered your way around.
Yeah, I can kind of see where, what kind of a restaurant I like or what the quality is, and then.
But that also changes like every state. A few 100 kilometers.
Tell me about it.
I still have to learn again.
Yeah, but that's what I'm doing for a long time now. I've been there 6 times, so I now know what I like, and then it's really good. But not everything is good, but it can be really good.
Like India itself, so you have to know your way around. Then it's very good.
That's usually what I hear from people from videos as well. Like I've always thought India was kind of a mess, chaotic, and all this chaotic traffic, and dirt and people pooping on the streets. And sometimes in the West, that is kind of the idea that they have from India.
Yeah.
And then they see these beautiful colors in my videos and these ancient places where people actually, do something, and then like, oh, whoa, that's really interesting.
And I think that there's a lot of love and feeling behind what they do, right? So they'll do with love and affection. They'll, greet you. They'll always, it doesn't matter how big or small the house is, they'll always have food for you. So it's I think a lot of affection that comes into play.
Yeah. Well, Indian people can be very, if you don't come to touristic places, Indian people are very generous and very hospitable, and they bring you in and they want to keep you there, and they just want to, they just want to do everything for you. And that is something that I'm truly grateful for. It's been amazing. I've got quite a few very good friends now.
What's kind of inspiring now you to start your own academy and teach other people and
in doing that from the start?
Yeah,
I had this idea to start certifications like right when I started.
Okay.
Because I noticed that nobody was teaching this and I really liked it. So I was like, this is fun, well, how do we do this? So my goal from the start was to take it far. In that sense, making sure that I was always evolving and learning, adapting. So the certification is like an extension of my journey. I'm not making it so I want to certify people because, certifications make more money or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's because I've actually gone through the process of teaching live a lot and then also creating online courses, so creating structure behind this and creating, like I've got one program, it's like 12 hours long, just online courses. Like I've been doing a lot of creative work on my own, just in my room, just swinging maces for hours and hours, just trying to figure out like, where do I find structure? How do I find foundation? Where is the bedrock of what we're doing here?
Yeah.
So that just kind of, people were asking for it. You also certify people. So that's kind of where the demand started to happen. I was like, this is going to be a thing. So it wasn't massive work to create it, but
and I saw that even the slides itself, it's very genuine, right? You'll not get this anywhere, the kind of structure that you're trying to put to this art, right?
Yeah. Well, I know it's unique because it came out of my head.
Yeah.
It came through me.
I think we also need to address that a lot of people don't see the hard work that is put behind creating these courses, right? And I think they should learn more before they start to talk negatively about, because I saw your video recently that you were not really happy of the negative comments that people are saying, right? So they should do a bit of more research on...
well, if you go to my YouTube and you go down, you notice that I've been continuously going there, but I've also been doing a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So people now, like, videos have been going crazy viral, like tens of millions of views for their shorts and stuff. It's like, wow. So people get these videos and they're like, hey. So it's interesting because one of my videos that went, I think it got 45 million views.
Oh.
And in that video, I kind of, I pointed out all my mistakes of that trip.
Yeah.
So that was my fail video. So I did like a 50 kilo GADA, joys of 20 kilo each. So a lot of weight. Interpreted in a way that they see the video where I'm failing. And then they see a video again that's going viral that is successful. So they're like, hey, he learned and now he's good.
Yeah.
So they have this idea that I came there 1 year ago and I learned it in India. And then now I'm back in India and I succeeded. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm actually I'm a proficient coach in this art. And the reason I failed was because it was 50 kilos.
And it's not that easy, right? I tried to do it for like 2 hours. It's not...
Yeah, with what kind of weight?
Yeah, it's 3 kg. Right?
Yeah, 3 kg. 3 or 4, and it's already heavy, right? Exactly. So just imagine having a 50 kilogram GADA. So people have this idea, and I know it's kind of sensitive, but they have this idea, just like yoga, that the West kind of took that concept and then made it different, and then now, just kind of like copied it, and they're kind of afraid that's also happening to this. But the interesting thing is, it was already happening.
Yeah.
But I'm actually the one that is also connecting into the history.
Exactly.
So that's why it feels weird for me to have the negative, because they see, they think I am the one who started to copy this thing.
I think that's because your videos are getting more viral. Otherwise, they have existed from like 1800s, like the Indian clubs and Indian kettlebells, which I think a lot of Britishers also started to practice.
Sure. It's not been solely Indian, and also there's a large lineage from Persia as well, like from Iran, and like they swung clubs in Greece at the time. So even the fact that they also swing clubs in different, like it's not necessarily a solely an Indian thing.
Yeah.
And this is difficult to process, but it's from a time way before India was called India.
Yeah.
Right? So they call it Mahabharata and Bharat, and like there's all these, it's a history that I need to learn more about, but I get it from people that are commenting. And it's true, but it's difficult to be really personally invested in what your country is doing.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that it feels like somebody's stealing from me, but it's not the case, because I didn't learn it in the first place from India, right? I learned it from people in the West.
Yeah.
So for me, it feels weird that people then say, "Oh, but you came to India, you learned everything, and now you're selling it in your own country and making money." And so, and that's also the thing that when people think that I'm making money of something, it's a negative thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the sole reason that this art is actually becoming popular again in India, mainly through the fact that all my videos went viral.
Exactly.
And in COVID times, they actually, and now there's lots of companies coming up in a neo-Western way.
Yeah.
They're producing it, they're marketing it, so they're making wooden tools again in India, which is so good. It's very good, but it's not connected to the traditional art.
Yeah.
So it's connected to this international online community. So it's just a new interpretation of the art. Doesn't mean that the traditional part doesn't
goes away.
No, it doesn't go away. There will always be passionate people that will do that.
Yeah.
But it's actually not going well with them, right? They're closing down quickly. So if that goes in the same,
and that sentiment comes from gods and goddesses that we worship. They also have this gada, which is used for fighting, and that kind of a lineage down to the gada that you see today. And I think there is a lot of sentiment there, and that's how people are connecting it to.
I know. This is something like I've even been harassed of the fact, because I was teaching in a church chapel. Okay, it's not my gym, but it's a friend of mine. He's made a gym out of a church chapel, and I get people like, "Oh, you're Christianizing the art, and there should be a Hanuman statue there." And it's like they've never been to our country, so they don't understand how we do things here, right? So and then there's also a thing like, if I put it from my rational mind. If you talk about the Gada from Hanuman, right, it has many interpretations.
Yeah.
So there's Kalari Paito, which uses it to fight, but it's a very different Gada than the one you see in Varanasi.
Yeah.
So the mace, the steel one, it's like, it kind of the same thing, but it's not really like a Gada. So where does it stop? Where does the connection stop, and where does it start? And then I made a documentary as well in India, and I visited quite a lot of Muslim places as well. So there's also Muslim Akharas. But they don't connect it to Hanuman.
Yeah.
They're still swinging clubs, right?
I think that's where you're saying the Persian connects comes into.
Yeah, in the Persia they also do it. They don't connect it to Hanuman there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a personal connection for these people that they connect it to, and it's a beautiful thing. But because I've seen how it works, because you're putting intention in if you do a prayer before you start the swing, you're actually becoming aware of what you're going to do. You're becoming aware of the dangers, the potential dangers. So having that connection is really important, and I can see why they do it. But it's difficult to interpret that and then copy it for the whole world. Like, it doesn't mean that the whole world that swings. For me, if I go to an Akhara, I put my shoes off and, I respect, right? Because I'm there, because I respect what is happening.
Yeah.
When I go back to the Netherlands, there's no Akhara here. There's no Hindu culture here.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like I'm bridging between the international community of swingers. It will grow, like it will be very big.
Yeah.
But making the connection with that part, and then the Indian part as well, that is where I'm kind of in between. So I get why there's going to be hate comments, because people don't appreciate that. But if they really dive deep into it, they can maybe emphasize with it. And
I would say, I would like to say this to them, that they should try doing once themselves as well, so they kind of be more appreciative of the fact that a lot of people are adopting.
Yeah, and a lot of these people that post these negative things, they're not coming to Akharas.
Yeah,
they don't post about it. They're just blah blah blah. Well, if you just blah blah blah, nothing happens. So
I think internet has become more accessible in India in recent times.
Yeah,
and you see these kind of effects of that.
So. Sure, but like I said again, if you've never been out of your village in India, your scope of the world is still very limited to where you came from, right?
Yeah.
So I've been in all these different places, all these different cultures, so I can kind of shift and move back. But for them, they see something on their phone, and it transport you to a different world, but there's no way for you to interpret that world.
Yeah.
So it's different.
I think that kind of also broadens your perspective when you start moving and experiencing these things firsthand, right? But coming back to your Dutchman Academy, what's next for you? What are you trying to set in terms of goals for you?
Yeah, so we got the certification. That's going to be, it's already part 2 of them. And yeah, it's just been amazing how people, get more involved. They become passionate. There's someone in Spain now creating the Spanish Flow Academy. He will do my courses in Spanish. Yeah. So he's teaching workshops. So it's spreading. It's actually spreading now. So we'll have a level 2 with that as well for more workshop focus. So there'll be a lot more focus on education. At the same time, I'm still creating new online courses for different tools. So now I'm working on 2 heavy clubs, like the meals, the Persian meals, or jars, or like the club bells, just 2 of them. And I've got so many creative ideas about programs, and I just love the creative work of figuring out a structure behind the tool. That's just what I do. Like, I could do that for hours and hours per day. Just spending time learning, trying things out, making sure it's different. So yeah, it'll be more courses, more certifications, more live events in that sense. We're working on that documentary. That's kind of very important as well. So we're trying to bring that to a bigger audience, because I think this professionally shot, it's going to be professionally edited. It's going to be, I think it will put these arts on the map.
And I saw that myself, a lot of people coming from different countries to learn this. And
yeah, there was one from Romania, Ireland, Germany, all over.
Well, Albert, nice talking to you. Thanks a lot for giving your time. And thanks for doing this.
You got it, Zion. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Yeah.